learning about the mind and the mind's nature and
Yeah.
how it wants to stay in safety. It wants to stay in understanding. And anything that's an outside threat to a person who's not consciously aligned with growing,
Yeah.
with being receptive to life, to being on the path, anything different is going to feel like a threat.
Aloha. Do you enjoy connecting with visionaries who generate positive change? Curious about how they keep a courageous focus above the status quo? Are you ready to embrace your own wholeness and potential? I'm your host, Colleen Akiko. This podcast aims to help prepare and equip you to fully embody your unique purpose for inner and outer compassionate transformation. So tune in, catch a spark, and we can all show up to blazingly be the change. Episodes of We Be the Change may discuss sensitive topics such as abuse, trauma, violence, addiction, and more. These conversations focus on overcoming challenges with hope and compassion. The hosts and guests may hold different viewpoints, but we value respect, appreciation, and mutual learning. Views expressed are those of the host and guests and may not reflect the policies or positions of any entity. The podcast's content is for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional advice. SongRise LLC assumes no liability for errors or omissions. Matthew Hara is known globally as a spiritual guide, a songwriter, musician, yoga teacher, and a craftsman who emerged 24 years ago from the depths of lifelong depression and severe substance abuse to follow an unwavering spiritual path in raising human consciousness. Welcome to We Be the Change. Thank you for being here, Matthew.
Thank you so much, Colleen. Grateful to be here.
So you are such a rich, varied smorgasbord of embodied life experience from many years of deep study and spiritual service in ancient wisdom traditions, different cultures. I'm wondering, did you just naturally ease into this path, or was it more of an abrupt beginning for you?
It was quite abrupt, actually. I was in the midst of still my party mode phase, 20 years old, living in San Diego County and surfing a bunch, going to school a little bit, but surfing was taking over and partying was my evening activity. And then I picked up a book. I forget how it came into my hands, but this book came into my life and then combined with my first yoga class, which was on the beach with just a friend I'd met. And she put me into meditation afterwards, and I just went somewhere else. And maybe 20, 30 minutes later, I opened my eyes and she looked at me. You just went somewhere, didn't you? And I was like, I did. And so that just kickstarted it. It was a spark, and that just lit the fire.
Yeah. Did that feel connective inside, or was it like you left your body and went somewhere? What was that like?
It started from inside, but I went into just an effortless space because I didn't know what meditation was.
Right.
I didn't have any pre-concepts or ideas of what I was doing. I just did the postures for maybe 30, 45 minutes and then sat down and just expanded. The expansion happened and thoughtlessness happened. I remember those two attributes were clear. And I went to timelessness, And she actually touched me on the shoulder eventually. And she said it's been 20, 30 minutes or whatever it was. And it felt like 30 seconds to me. I just went somewhere. Yeah.
And you've experienced that thousands of times since then.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Because then I had a taste for what I knew now I wanted.
Mhm.
Like that experience literally gave me a vision for life where I never had a vision. Like literally, I was just
Mhm.
drifting. And that I think was the foundation of a lot of my depression. Like I didn't have a vision. I didn't have a passion. Yeah, I was good at sports and athletics and I loved nature and I had good friends, but nothing I was passionately living for.
I remember you saying when you were growing up, your nickname was Oscar the Grouch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or what was that
my-
on the inside?
Yeah, that was definitely from the earliest age I can remember. I just remember feeling heaviness
Mm.
and coldness and anxiety and stress. And that could have been because of so many factors, the family situation, those first formative years up on Donner Summit where it was literally cold. Those were huge winters in the early
Yes.
80s. That was intense living, but I wasn't a happy kid. Yeah.
You have described yourself in your early years as being very sensitive. You are just designed as a sensitive person, as many of us are, and empathic.
Mhm.
When we are sensitive and empathic, and there are intensities going on around us, we have to take care of ourselves somehow.
Yes.
Do you feel like that is what caused you to go into that deep depression from an early time?
Definitely. I think, of course, you don't know what it is. You don't know that because you're sensitive, you're feeling everything and everyone. You're hyper alert, you're
Yes.
hyper aware. And even back then, I was very sensitive to spirits and entities. I had this spirit of this female. She tortured me when I was in my room at night alone, when I was just from a very young age, like 2, 3, 4 years old. My first memories, I remember just being frightened to go to sleep because I knew she was going to come and just torture my mind. Yeah, so I think it creates this shutting down. You try to shut it down. And then, of course, you try to tiptoe around people. You want to make as little impact as possible. So then you're not being your full self. You're not able to just express. Yeah.
You know, that is something that is not talked about a lot. And yet people feel things that they don't know how to describe, but they are very constrictive. They're very frightening. And I know I have felt that many times myself growing up as well. And you don't want to talk about it because it seems weird. And people don't want to be around weird people. And of course, to feel connected. And
Yes.
so we do. So many of us take the route that you did, and you just deaden it down and medicate yourself so things are not so painful.
Yes.
And so you survived childhood and
I did.
adolescence. I'm glad.
Yeah, all my physical needs were provided for. Of course, my parents split up, and so not having my father around very often, that was what not provided for often, and that was painful. But everything else was there. I was healthy, I was athletic, I connected with other kids easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, internal world was just dark.
As it is for so many, so many. We have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And here you are, being a bright light, and I'm so grateful. I have witnessed you really connecting, not just one-to-one, but in group situations. And I'm amazed at how transparently you can show up with your words, your stories, your songs, your chanting, leading meditations. I hear you're leading a retreat, and you've done that all over the world. And so I feel very blessed, very honored that you have so much to pull from in your personal experience. It's not head knowledge. And it's so timely that you're here in the world now because we have enough head knowledge. And I know you've studied a lot.
Yeah.
Studied with many gurus, many teachers, many cultures,
which is unique in and of itself, to have someone here who is embodying and sharing, not just in a Western way. And yet here you are in the West. And that has, it's almost, I seem to use the metaphor of food a lot.
Yeah.
But it's, instead of the cheap powdered spices, you go out in the garden and you grab herbs and you grind them up, and they're very authentic and fresh. And that's how you strike me as a person. I'm wondering, after this experience, that I guess it was just a few days ago that marked the anniversary. Am I right? Of about 24 years ago or something. I thought I read something about that, where you found yourself on a clear, distinct path of wherever that came from. That's where you are going with all course.
Yeah.
How was that shift on the outside and the inside? Because that was huge.
Yeah. Oh man. On the outside, to my friends, at first they're taken aback. They're like, "What do you mean you're not going to drink tonight?" Or, "Why are you reading so much all the time?" All of a sudden, I didn't stop drinking or partying immediately, but it completely shifted to where now I was focused, and that stuff started to fall away rapidly. And after about a year, I'd quit pretty much all that. And the people around me, first of all, your old friends, they don't really appreciate it, because the mind itself doesn't appreciate change generally. Its first response to the mind's response to any change is, it's a threat, because it's not known. And the mind is designed to know things. It wants to know things. It wants to understand. And so when a person changes, generally they don't appreciate it at first. And then the ones who deeply care for you, and if you have the time to converse and communicate what you're going through, then generally they're happy and supportive. But sometimes not also. I had family members. I started to chant. I started to read all these books. I started to just want to pick up conversations, especially with my aunts and uncles who were very spiritual and religious, and inquiring in certain ways. And inadvertently, it felt like I was testing them and their faith and their tradition, because I'm suddenly reading Eastern tradition books from all kinds of different religions and spiritual paths. And I'm starting to want to have inquiry outside of these surface level work, school, sports, what are you doing kind of thing. And I started to discover rapidly what a tender zone that is for people. And how much insecurity there is, or how much arrogance there is. I literally couldn't really find anyone to have just a conversation that felt like it could be a give and a take. It was either they're telling me or it's a shutdown thing, and the conversation didn't really work. So I found that very interesting. And it actually, it made me fascinated and want to look more.
Yeah, what was behind that?
Yeah.
Do you feel like those kinds of conversations in this day and time are easier to have in general in our society?
In general, they're easier for sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they're in the clear. Of course, it depends on the community and the people. For some people, you don't even have to say anything. You could sit down together and you're there. Boom. Hearts are online, that they've applied and understand the principles within themselves. They're not trying to splatter it on someone else. And therefore you can just connect, and that's the best. And that is happening more and more. I see that for sure.
Yeah. And one thing that I appreciate about you is the embodiment that you offer. You're not showing up as a talking head wanting to teach somebody about this brand of yoga or something like that. You're showing up as an expression of love. So wherever that person is or that group is, there's a connection that can be made at whatever level the person wishes to connect. You are also a spiritual guide as well as a teacher. A spiritual guide in these times that can be one-on-one, and you are expressing that also through your music through various creative expressions that I'd love to hear more about. But I know I've segued a bit. I apologize. But
Not at all.
these things just come up as you're talking because even though they're part of your story and your backstory, they're so relevant to all of us. And I know myself included. How do we talk about these things? How do we be real with people who don't really want to be real? They want to protect something else because that's what they feel familiar and safe with. And yet our times don't feel that safe right now. And so this is a prime time for us to root deeper and find our anchor. And you've been doing that all along, or at least for the past 20 years.
I've been doing my best. And that's especially, I love that you brought up the communication piece, because that is one of the biggest parts of bridging this new consciousness. Everything comes down to communication, from the cells in our bodies to our consciousness, from the individual to the universal, on so many layers and levels.
Yes.
But especially in my family, my parents, at least from my perspective, and I say this lovingly, but their communication was extremely shut down. And then as I reflected, got older, through my whole family. I had one side of the family who it was very normal to practice the silent treatment, where if you were mad at someone, like literally wouldn't talk to them for months or sometimes even years on end.
Ouch.
Yeah. And one of the most fascinating and also painful experiences I had was after my first trip to India at 23, I went over there and had completely life-changing experiences. And I came back wide open, my heart more open, happier, more inspired, more alive than ever. And I remember trying to share with the first friend I came home with, and they immediately shut down. And then the next friend, and they're like, yeah, that's cool. And then changed the topic. And it was blaringly alarming to me. It was like, oh my gosh, whatever I'm doing is threatening them, but I'm coming in with such innocence. Like, I'm just trying to share my story. It's not like, come to India. This is what happened. And again, learning about the mind and the mind's nature and how it wants to stay in safety. It wants to stay in understanding. And anything that's an outside threat to a person who's not consciously aligned with growing, with being receptive to life, to being on the path, anything different is going to feel like a threat.
Yes.
And they're going to close down.
I'm glad you were able to join us for this first segment with Matthew Hara. And I'm wondering if what he shared about his self-discovery journey is resonating with you. Please let us know and tune in next week for the second segment with Matthew Hara. You can find out more about him and his songs and his ministry and all the things that he does at MatthewHara.com. That's MatthewHara.com. Thanks for listening. This is your host, Colleen Akiko, at We Be the Change. Blessings and love.